So that's me, not literally, but figuratively speaking, because I feel like I'm standing here before you on a very slippery slope, because I'm here to talk today about gender equality, or more accurately, gender bias in business. And I want to start with a couple points. Number one, I am a feminist, and somewhere along the lines, feminism got to be a bad word, and I'm not sure how. So I put the definition up here for you in case you're not familiar with it. And a feminist is just somebody who believes that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. So if you're a feminist too, great, welcome. You don't have to tell anybody, but I would love it if you did. Number two, I like men. I'm married to one. He's one of the men in the room right now. I'm raising two. I have many who are friends, and since my career has led me to venture capital and startups and technology, I've worked with a whole slew of them, and I like them. Most of them, if I'm being completely honest with you. Not all of them. And three, I think that I might say some things today that will make you uncomfortable. And that's okay. I want to make you a little bit uncomfortable because I want you to do something about these things that make you uncomfortable. I'm really uncomfortable with a lot of what I've seen in my career. And in fact, I'm more than uncomfortable. To borrow a classic movie line, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Okay? Gender equality is not just a feminine or a female issue. This is a national issue. It affects more than just 50% of our population. It affects all of us. And the good news is that a solution to this will positively influence all of us. But we're going to need all hands on deck to solve this: men, women, boys, and girls. So I hope that you'll stay with me through this talk. I hope that you'll understand that I'm coming from a place that is good, and you don't have to agree with everything that I say. You don't have to like me. I hope that you do. I think we can be friends. But I just really hope that you'll hear me out and understand that what I'm trying to do is advance the movement, not just for women, but for all of us, especially our sons and daughters. Okay, so before we talk about where we're going or where we are right now, I think that it's a good idea to take a look in the rearview mirror and understand where we've been, because we really have come a long way. So starting in 1869 was when the National Women's Suffrage Association was formed. In 1920 is when we got the right to vote. Sweet. 1964 is when the Equal Pay Act was established, which is awesome. However, in the next 5 years, we had already received 50,000 gender discrimination complaints. Eee. In 1972 is when Title IX had amended the Equal Pay Act, and so that impacted education, sports, to make it equal for boys and girls, but it also extended the Equal Pay Act to cover executives, administrators, outside salespeople, and professionals. So as you can see, those are roles in leadership that were not originally covered in the Equal Pay Act. Now, 1993 was when Take Our Daughters to Work Day debuted. I remember this. I was a high school junior that year, so I'm dating myself a little bit. And it's when they wanted to show girls that there was this variety of career opportunities available to them. And I remember being in high school, and basically for me, it was I could be a doctor or a lawyer. Those were my options. Technology, not even anywhere near being on the table. And so obviously we need to change that. And I think we're doing a lot with STEM right now to do that, but we need to be doing more about it. We need to be talking more about it. And then in 2009, you might have heard of Lilly Ledbetter. And this was an act that basically eliminated, you might not have known that it existed, but there was a 180-day statute of limitations to the Equal Pay Act that you couldn't file a complaint if it was more than 180 days from the date of the act. And so that was changed. So that's good. We've made a lot of progress. But we still do have a long way to go. So I could stand up here and tell you stories all day long about gender bias that I've experienced in my career. And I said I kind of dated myself earlier. I'll tell you, I'm turning 40 this year. Thank you. I know, I don't look a day over 39, right? But to tell you the truth, I've always looked forward to being older, because I thought that, having been a young woman in business all of my life, I thought that I would have more credibility and I'd be taken more seriously when I was older. But the thing is that I'm still a woman in business. And so I'm still experiencing gender bias, both blatant and unconscious. And unconscious bias is a really tricky one, ladies, because people don't even know that they're doing it. And if they don't know they're doing it, they're not even going to try to correct it. So there's a lot of people doing research and reporting on unconscious bias right now. I'm not an expert in that area, but I'd really encourage you to check it out. It's really interesting stuff. And I've experienced bias from men and women alike, okay? Not just men. So I think that we're not just talking about looking at men in this capacity. But my stories would be one-sided, as I said. And there's so many things that are in the public eye right now that are just blatant. I thought that it would be better for me to show you some of my favorites. So I don't know if you all saw the Newsweek of February of this year cover, what Silicon Valley actually thinks of women. Yeah. This was on the newsstands. So I've actually spent a lot of my time working in Silicon Valley, having been in startup and technology, and I will tell you that gender bias and even misogyny is rampant still in Silicon Valley and in technology. And that's not to say that this is everyone and this is everywhere. There are certainly exceptions, but it still is a very big problem. Not only for women founders, but for women who are working for these technology companies. You should read the article. It's available online. It'll blow your mind. Secondly, I loved this one. I don't know if you guys saw, but in Austin this year is the first time that the city council is a female majority in Austin. So what seemed appropriate for the city manager to do was to hire a consultant to teach the city workers how to deal with women. Okay? And what they spent some of their 2 hours of this training on was, you need to be patient because women ask a lot of questions. For real, this year. And they're not very good with numbers or math. Swear to God, all right? So maybe that's why we don't realize the whole equal pay thing is a problem. We're just not very good with numbers, right? So right now, we are making 77 cents on the dollar for compared to men for the same job. There is an exception in technology. I've heard that we're making 98 cents. So girls, young women in the audience, go into technology. I will tell you that there are a couple of reasons why this could be happening. One is maybe we don't negotiate our salaries as well when we get the job. It's possible. Maybe it's because we're taking some breaks. I'm going to talk about that in a minute in our career path. And so we're not working up the pay scale as quickly as men. So regardless of what the reason is, I will tell you this. All of the mathematicians out there that are really good at math, they figured out that we are not going to see equal pay in our lifetime. That's absurd. Yes, thank you. It is absurd. Okay? So, let's stop for a second and talk about gender equality. Now, it occurred to me, we're striving for gender equality, and maybe we're setting ourselves up for failure just as a matter of semantics. Is that possible? So, here's the thing. Men and women are different, right? We are not the same. And what does equality mean? The same, right? So, I don't want to be the same as men, okay? I want to be equally valued, equally respected, be paid equally, sure, being given equal opportunities, but I also want to be respected for my differences, okay? And for what I bring to the table, I want to be valued for those differences. And I want to be okay, I want to be able to grow in my weaknesses and to be vulnerable and to be able to grow through those and not have to pretend like I'm not different in that way. So perhaps maybe what we should really be looking for is a gender balance, right? Now, we've been using personality typing and testing in the workplace to get jobs into advance for decades. Because we know that if a team is the same, we know that balanced teams are the strongest teams. And that if we are all the same, that we're going to polarize and we're going to have groupthink, and that's damaging and detrimental for a team. So why aren't we applying that as it applies to women in these positions as well? I think we should be. And maybe if we did, we wouldn't have such a disparity between educated women and women in leadership positions. So right now, and actually since the 80s, we've had more women earning college degrees, both undergraduate degrees and graduate degrees on college campuses by quite a bit. We have 60% of women are earning the degrees right now, yet that's not translating into leadership positions. I know. So if you look at, this is the S&P top 500, but it also follows through to the Fortune 1000 companies, only 14% of the executive positions, so the top 5 positions are filled by women. Only 4% actually of CEOs, and one just quit. So if I was better at math, I could tell you off the top of my head what that percentage was. Of the doctors, only 34% are female. As long as I'm on a slippery slope, let's talk politics. We all know that we do have a woman running for president this year. However, she's still in the vast minority. 19% of US Congress are female, and of entrepreneurs, it's actually the fastest growing. We have 30%, and I think there's a couple reasons for that, of entrepreneurs and small business owners are women. But they're only getting less than 5% of the venture funding from VCs and angels that's really necessary to grow businesses. That's a problem. So what does all this mean? I hope that at this point we're all on the same page that we have a gender equality problem in business in the United States. Are you with me on that, ladies? Okay, good. So again, I've experienced gender bias in business throughout my career so often that I almost got to the point where I just said, it is what it is. I can choose to play the game, and for the record, it is a man's game. I can choose to play by their rules. I can do what I can to make some little changes to the rules or maybe make up some new rules along the way. Or I can take my toys and go home. Those are my choices. But I didn't like those options. And you know what? I've played the man's game pretty successfully over the past 20 years. I've founded a couple companies. I have raised venture capital. I've been the chief marketing officer for other companies. So I've been there. I've gotten used to being the only woman in the room or at the table. I've gotten used to being called just one of the guys, and they meant that as a compliment. But do you know what? I haven't gotten used to being called a bitch. And it is a cliche, and we've all heard it, that when a man makes a hard business decision, he's strong, he's smart, he's decisive and powerful. When a woman makes that same decision, she's a bitch. And you know what? It sucks being a bitch. I don't want to be a bitch, certainly when there are so few bitches around. Okay? So we could either teach our girls how to have thicker skin so that they don't care if people call them a bitch, or we could make being a bitch cool. We could put some marketing behind it. Or we could change the game. Not because we can't win on this unlevel playing field, because we can play that game, but we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to, not because it's not fair, and for the record, it is not fair, but we can handle that. We're not victims, we can deal with that. We shouldn't have to because women run businesses, and businesses that have women leadership do better. They perform better than those that have males at the helm. So the S&P average growth of a company is 25%, and there's been a ton of studies on this woman effect, that's what they call it, woman effect, that shows that women-led businesses are consistently nearly doubling the performance of those run by men. Okay? That's a fact. And those women that are getting less than 5% of the venture funding, myself being one of them, are consistently earning 12% higher revenue and producing 30% higher ROI on that money than their male counterparts who are bringing home 95% of the venture capital that's out there. Okay? Again, this is not a female issue. This has nothing to do with ovaries. If we had more women in leadership positions in these companies, that means more profit, more job security, more opportunities, more balance for everyone. So one of the problems that we have is that our high-achieving women, and those women are defined as women who have graduated with their bachelor's or their master's degrees with honors, they're actually leaning out, okay? And this has been called a self-imposed barrier. Probably won't surprise you to hear that I don't like that term either. Not only because it talks more about the ultimate decision that these women made rather than why they made the decision, or even that they were faced with the decision in the first place. When was the last time you heard of any man being asked if he planned to go back to work after the baby came? Ever? Probably not, right? So when my husband and I decided that it was time to start a family, I quit my job. And that was the start of my entrepreneurial career. Now, I don't recommend that for everyone. My risk tolerance is probably at a pathological level. I should probably be medicated. And that's not right for everyone, not only for that reason, but because we need women in leadership across all roles. We need them in corporate America. We need them in government, in politics, in religion, in medicine, in law, in all of these fields, because we need them affecting policy and making change. What's happening here is that 33% of our highly achieving women are at some point, at least one point in their careers, taking extended leaves to spend time at home. That's usually to take care of a family member, so that could be a child or it could be an aging parent. But a full 66% are opting out of full-time work altogether. And it's not because they don't want to work full-time, it's because they don't want to be tied to the rigor of a full-time schedule, of a 40-hour work week. It's too much with everything else that we got going on, ladies, right? And I'm sure you hear me and you feel me. So the good news is, I think that both of these are preventable. I think that this is easy, not easy, I totally take that back. I think that there's something that we can do about both of these, and it's just with addressing the whole work-life balance thing. So let's take a look at that. No, because they can be the same. Yeah, it's a math thing again. Got it. It's okay. So the work-life balance, this is a perpetual chase, I feel. Have you all been, I feel like it's a grown-up version of a snipe hunt. Do you have all been snipe hunting? So spoiler alert for those who haven't, snipes don't exist. They're not real. So do you know, by show of hands, do you know where the 8-hour workday originated? Anyone? Okay, because I told you. So, it's totally cheating. So I didn't know either, to be fair, until my son, my 9-year-old, did a report on Henry Ford. So Henry Ford, who was an innovator in his day, shocked the nation when he took his workers they used to work 10 to 16 hours a day, and he cut them down to 8 hours a day, and he doubled their pay at the same time. And what happened over the next couple years was their productivity increased, and his profit margins soared. And every other industry followed suit after that, and the 8-hour workday became the norm. So there you have it. That's why we are tied to our desks or our shifts for 8 hours a day, because that's what made the most sense for factory workers in 1914. So I'm having a hard time reconciling this whole work-life balance thing when the work side of the equation was built for men who I'm betting had a pretty different schedule than what we have to deal with today, a century later, right? So, the demands of the global workforce today and the technology that we have at our fingertips, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Imagine a world that was different. What would that look like if we could work flexible schedules? And again, this doesn't work for everybody. We're starting to see it more in startups, but we're also seeing companies go backwards, big companies with females at the lead. And they're going back to the 8 to 5 butts in seats model. It doesn't make sense. Imagine what it would look like with a schedule that worked better for lifestyles. What would that do to traffic patterns, to carbon footprints, to budgets for families and to businesses? What if more of us could volunteer in schools, whether we have kids or not? Maybe we could bring back arts and sports that were sacrificed due to budget cuts. So the point is, we can all do something about this. We just need to imagine, and we need to innovate, and we need to implement. So one of the other problems is that we got to help a sister out here when it comes to leadership. We've got a pipeline problem in leadership positions in business. And what's happening is that a couple of different things. One is women are not getting the leadership training they need to move into these positions of leadership. So it doesn't just happen overnight. It happens progressively throughout someone's career. So maybe it's because the one and done factor, and that is if there is one woman in the top 5, the chances of another woman being in that top 5 are very, very unlikely. Actually, it happens more in a statistically, it happens in a random assignment more often than it actually happens in real life. Another option for the reason this is happening is because the women aren't getting the sponsors, not just mentorship, but sponsorship. That's where somebody, male or female, really takes an interest in you and your career and makes sure that you're getting the right roles along your entire career that are going to prepare you to run a company someday. Those are positions that have to do with profit and loss, operations, and revenue generation. These are important. Maybe it's because it's been shown that men are promoted based on their future potential, and women are promoted based on their past performance. And maybe, ladies, maybe it's because we're competitive within our own ranks rather than being collaborative. And you know what? The good news here is that we can do something about this. We can all do something about this. But again, we're going to need all hands on deck. Men, women, boys, and girls. We need you to join the revolution. And you know what? We can start by just talking about it. Talk about this problem and how it affects all of us and how the solution will benefit all of us. Talk about it. Talk to your sons and daughters. Talk to your husbands and wives. Talk to your coworkers and your friends. Just talk about it. The era of us accepting the things that we cannot change is over. It's time that we change the things that we cannot accept, starting right now. Thank you.